have an opportunity here to provide leadership, support, and a voice to the voiceless. The sacrifices that we made during our service do not end here. We carry on. We push forward, and we give hope and inspiration through love, community, and support. Stay free.
Rights and freedoms in this country are absolutely everything to me, because I personally know the sacrifice required in order to get them back once they're gone. So when my brothers and sisters call Stand 2, be sure I'll be there.
Legacy media will play their games, right? Like, this isn't about this or that. This is about freedom, period.
The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Brothers and sisters in uniform, whether you're a police officer, military, check your hearts. Look where we're going. Man, wake up. I beg you.
If the veterans can't stand up and get a message across to the government, I don't know who can. I don't know. But we're going to give it our best shot. And I think we have a chance to win this and do it. But we need your help. And we need you to come, and we need you to stand too. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk again soon.
Woke pirates, yes they robbed, sold out to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, well, my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption. redemption songs. Redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. Redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Radical Candor Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Evely, the Magnanimous GenX'er Male, and I practice radical candor. Got a great show lined up for you here this evening. Our very favorite Muckraker, Chris Dacey, is backstage, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, there is no shortage of things to talk about going on in the world out there today. So hopefully we get something approximating the truth. It's very hard to do these days, but I think we're quite close just based on what's been coming out since the last time Chris and I sat down together. So I'll go ahead and say good evening to everybody before I bring him in here. Dwayne was the first one on the board over on Rumble saying evening, folks. Evening to you, Dwayne. Always good to have you with us, brother. Messiah854 is saying great way to start our week with some V4F. Looking forward to the show. Thanks very much. Thanks for being with us. And let's see, over here on Facebook, we got Patricia saying, hey, Canada First, July 27th at 1 p.m. Be there or be taken over. Is that the one in Toronto? I saw some posts about that, so let me know. Set your locations. Okay, this one is news to me, although I do know that there's something going on in Toronto. I saw a post about that, so I'll be keeping my eye on that. Gloria is saying, hello, Jeff and Chris. Hello to you, Gloria. Thanks for being with us. And Marianne says, good evening, everyone from Barrie. Thanks for being with us. And also shared, yes, please share this out, especially if you're on the Rumble feed, because I had a bit of a problem with that one there when we were firing this up. I think Freedom Honey might have streamed to my location to the live stream that I'd set up on Rumble, because it looks like it was already done before I started broadcasting. But oh well, that kind of thing's going to happen. That's part of being on a team, I guess. Okay, and Rob is here saying good afternoon, evening, all, and giving us the victory and the maple leaf. Thanks for being with us, Rob. And Noble SD gives us the maple leaf, and Aj is saying, hey, everyone, been a long time since I've been on here. Well, thanks for being back. Thanks for coming back to us, brother. Slabtown Gal says, good evening, everyone. And Triple Slashy Cindy, our most faithful of all watchers, says, welcome back. And good evening, Jeff Hartz, everyone. And good evening, friends. Darlene says, good evening, all. Gee, I made this time. I hope everyone is having an awesome day. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and dive into this so I can get Chris in here. He's waiting patiently backstage. So let's go ahead and do our philosophy quote for the day. This one is Plato, and he says, there will be no end to the troubles of the states or of humanity itself till philosophers become kings in this world, or till those we now call kings and rulers really and truly become philosophers, and political power and philosophy thus come into the same hands. Well, I think we can probably relate to that right now. We have anything but philosophers in charge of our countries at the moment. The only thing that really seems to be driving any of this is the will to power, which made me go looking for a Nietzsche quote initially, but I ended up settling on this one. Because as we can see, I think there will be no end to the troubles of humanity until we have philosophers as our rulers. Okay. Oh, I got a little sloppy in there. Oh, where is my meme? I think I had it there. It's gone. Okay. We have some other memes lined up. That's fine. So here is the story of the day. Since I got it up here, I'll go ahead and read it, and then we'll bring Chris in and get some thoughts on this. So here is from the desk of Joseph R. Biden Jr. As you can see, this is being tweeted from Joe Biden's account at Joe Biden, not the POTUS account, but Joe Biden's account. And it says, "My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation, in lowering prescription drug costs for seniors, and in expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today." Well, first of all, I don't believe that. And second of all, who wrote this? This is terrible grammar. These are incomplete sentences, left, right, and center. Passed the first gun safety law in 30 years. I think there's a pronoun missing from that, like we. So anyway, I might be nitpicking here, but this is weird. Okay, next paragraph. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. You're not supposed to start that sentence with "and." I believe today, what I always have, that there is nothing America can't do when we do it together. We just have to remember that we are the United States of America. And that is ostensibly his signature at the bottom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Canada's favorite muckraker, Chris Dacey. How you doing today, brother? You look good.
Hey, I'm doing good. That's painful to listen to, though. Yeah, I feel that. It's all right. Sun beating down here, calm lake. It's perfect.
Yeah. Right on. So you're out in cottage country right now? Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah. I'm out in Ontario, kind of out highway, so between Ottawa and Toronto, kind of Peterborough. It's beautiful out here.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I saw you posting some pics. I think you're out on the sea-doos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Getting a little R&R.
It's good to get away, man. Yeah, good to get away, man. It's amazing how different it is, when you get out of the city and you spend a few minutes out like this. Like, man, I'm at least 20-30% calmer than I normally am.
Yeah, I bet. Especially given the current state of affairs in the cities these days.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't take a bit of time to get away and do this kind of thing, and unwind a little bit, like, man, we've seen people get beat down and break, and we don't want that. Because that fatigue sets in, and you need to find a bit of balance and find time to get away. Nature is healing, I find.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I got a little bit of sun myself there over the weekend. I was out on the motorcycle quite a bit. I know exactly what you mean. Like we gotta make that time for the R&R. And I gotta tell myself, it's like, yeah, I got like tons of stuff to do, but at the same time, it's gonna be there when I get back. So this is kind of the attitude that I used to take in my own career, just going on leave and things like that. Like you have to take your leave. So I think that's probably the right mindset to get into. It's like, yeah, you have to take your leave, and whatever it is you got on your plate right now, like it'll still be there when you get back. So very important that we all kind of stay in this for the long run. So thanks for setting the example on that one there, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm bad at following my own advice, but this has been good for me. I mean, man, so that letter, like where do we even start, eh? First of all, the letter, like it's his personal letterhead He's releasing this statement on X. There's no verbal thing, and it's terribly written. I don't even imagine. Do you think he even wrote it? It's hard to say, but right off the bat, you wonder why it's his personal letterhead. Why are you making such a huge statement on X? Nobody's heard from the guy since. There's so much here to talk about. So it's we'll have to dive into some of this and see where it goes.
Well, I'll tell you the very first thing, maybe not the first thing, but the thing that jumps out at me the most is he says, I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. But you know what he doesn't say? He doesn't say that I endorse Vice President Kamala Harris for president. I don't see that anywhere in this letter.
Yeah, that was noticeably absent, and I kind of made a post that pretty quickly when this news came down. All I had really seen is the red statement. I think it was Jen, that one Psaki or whatever she is, the MSNBC there, and I noticed that immediately. By the time I posted, there was a few people saying they think that it might be Kamala, but it seems like that decision or that announcement at least came much later. So this was done first, and I mean, if he was thinking or his plan was to endorse her, you would imagine that he would include it in his original tweet or X post.
Yeah.
So that was
it would have made it.
And he can say that she's been a great partner and all this stuff, but I mean, he doesn't mean that. He can't stand her. She absolutely attacked him like crazy, leading into those primaries. She basically, was attacking him as a racist the whole time. I've never really seen them make up. I don't think he's a real big fan of her, and I don't think many people are.
No, I think it was strategic. I think he picked Kamala Harris so there wouldn't be an option to replace him midway. Like, if they're going to 25th Amendment him or something like that, because, of his failing mental acuity, like he's pretty clearly got dementia. So if they find themselves in that situation, it makes it all that much harder to do the right thing and get him out of the way. Like if they don't have a viable VP on deck ready to do the left seat, right seat, then we're going to see exactly the kind of reluctance I think that we saw to do anything about the situation with Joe Biden, and everybody's just kind of pretending that it's all good, everything's okay, and nobody is saying, hey, nobody on the Democrat side seems to be saying like this is Kamala's time.
Yeah, and that's the thing that they're saying a lot, right? They always act like everything's okay. I mean, leading up to this for months and months now, they've been saying that Biden is okay. He's sharp as a tack. He's stronger than he's ever been. He's smart. He's this, that. I mean, they're lying completely, right? And then as soon as he does this, then they're saying, this is the most stand-up man in the world. He's putting his stuff aside for the country. Nobody even brings up the fact that if he's completely unable to go forward later, he can't string together a sentence. He doesn't know where he is. He's been missing now for 3 days or so, or whatever it is. If he's not fit to continue or to run, how is he fit to lead now?
Exactly. And I was just going to point that out because that's another thing that I see here. He says, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. So if he's not fit to be, if he's not fit for re-election, then how the heck is he fit to continue serving as president now?
And with something so big going on, temperature too hot. I might lose you and have to switch phones. Hold on. If I lose you, I'll be back in a second.
Yeah. Okay. I'll power through, brother. We'll keep her going. No worries. These are the joys of doing live streams, folks.
In the sun. I'm gonna go find some shade. Just give me 2 seconds here.
All good, man. Yeah. So very suspicious letter here, guys. I know I saw a lot of stuff out there that was questioning whether this was actually Joe Biden's signature as well. I guess it doesn't really line up perfectly with some of his earlier signatures. I don't know what we can really infer from that, but it's just something to keep an eye on, I think, as more comes out about this. Definitely suspicious, like Chris was just saying. And I think we just lost him. You're not there, are you, Chris? Yeah, I think we did just lose him, but that's okay. He'll jump back in here. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out, and we'll move on a little bit here and just wait for Chris to come back in. I'm sure he'll only be a minute. Stuff like this happens. Okay, here's End Wokeness. Joe Biden has not been seen in 5 days. The meeting with Netanyahu was just abruptly canceled. No explanation. All we have is a letter posted on X. Remember this? He's the End Wokeness is tweeting out this capture of the screen on CNN, and it says how the media is covering Melania's absence, and they're they have all of these dates from May 11th to June 3rd, and they're like, hey, where's Melania? Where's Melania? So there was this big hype on CNN wondering where Melania was, and now we have the president himself, Joe Biden, with obvious questions around his longevity and health, and nobody seems to be talking about it. It's no big Chiron on CNN and no calendar to go with it. So what's going on there, do you think? Okay, and here is Charlie Kirk. This one comes courtesy of Dacey here, folks. So props to him whenever he gets back in here. But Charlie Kirk, he's on Facebook here, and he says, if you have intel, please email freedom@charliekirk.com. And he's saying, got a weird lead on a story that people should look into. I got a call from a source close to Las Vegas Metro. The official story was that Joe Biden's trip was cut short last week due to COVID. However, according to this source, U.S. Secret Service informed LV Metro that there was an emergency situation involving Joe Biden and to close necessary streets so that POTUS could be transported immediately to the University Medical, which they began to do in earnest. Then, mysteriously, there was a stand-down order to the USSS, that's the Secret Service, informed local Vegas PD that they were going to, quote unquote, medevac POTUS to Johns Hopkins, which they presumed meant flying back east ASAP. Apparently, the rumor mill in the police department was that Joe Biden was dying or possibly already dead. I didn't think too much about this lead. It seemed too wild to be true, but given that Joe Biden has been out of the public sight for days and dropped out of the race via an X post, and his brother James indicated health was a factor, I'm beginning to grow more curious if COVID or something else has been more serious than reported. If anyone with LV Metro has information, please email freedom@charliekirk.com. I want to hear if there is more to the official story than what they're telling us. Well, there almost always is. And he's also asking, when was the last time anyone saw Joe Biden? Well, that seems to be the question of the day. When was the last time anybody saw Joe Biden? I'm not entirely sure, but definitely something that I think we want to keep an eye on. All kinds of questions abound. Yeah, let's keep following this one, folks. All right. And I was just trying to get something else there. Okay. Next, just a reminder, this is Kaneko the Great, new, and this isn't really new. This is from a few months ago. I think this is, March 20th. China's President Xi Jinping personally approved CEFC China's Energy's business partnership with the Biden family. So this is from the U.S. Congress. Here is the great Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's got some questions for Tony Boblowinski, who is the primary witness in the whole Biden family corruption scandal. Okay, here we go.
This message doesn't call Zhang Chairman Zhang, does it? It just says the Chinese want to do business with the Bidens. As a matter of fact, it says both coming to be my partner, to be partners with the Bidens, with an S. He, Zhang, has implied that the number one has made it clear and available to him. Who is the number one?
The number one is Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping, the president of China? Yes or no? The leader of the Communist Party, the CCP?
Yes.
Is the number one?
Yes, that's the number one that Hunter was referencing in that message.
Now, let's be very clear. This was in 2017, but I would like to make it known for this committee that Joe Biden told the press in 2016, as a matter of fact, I quote, "Yeah, I am going to run in 2020. He told the press in 2016 that he was running for president of the United States in 2020. So here is the Bidens doing business in China in 2017 when everybody knew he was planning to be president of the United States. Do you see that to be a serious problem, Mr. Bobulinski?
I do, and I wish this committee would thoroughly investigate it and focus on all the evidence that the SDNY has on CFC. They had FISA warrants, so they were recording conversations, and I wish they disclose all that data and fact to this committee.
Powerful stuff.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about What are you talking about? China.
The latest revelations in the House Oversight Committee investigation into Biden family business dealings involves two checks that landed in Joe Biden's personal bank account. One was for $40,000, the other $200,000.
We've proven the family had over 20 shell companies. We had proven they've had all these bank accounts. Now we have enough bank accounts in, Sean, where we can actually trace the money back to the source.
According to the committee's latest bank records memo, the first check was written to Joe Biden on September the 3rd, 2017, after a series of complicated financial transactions. The memo alleges that earlier that same year, Hunter Biden and his business associates forged a venture with CEFC, an energy company with connections to the Chinese government, which obliged it to contribute a $10 million capital payment. When the money didn't arrive, Hunter, on July 30th, reportedly sent a WhatsApp message to CEFC associate Raymond Zhao, which in part reads, "I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled."
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved? Were you?
No! The WhatsApp message continued with a warning from Hunter. "I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction." It looked to have worked.
First, Northern International Capital, a Chinese company associated with CEFC, wired $5 million to Hudson West 3, a joint venture established by Hunter Biden and a CEFC associate.
Remember, CEFC is the energy company with connections to the Chinese government.
Then Hudson West 3 sent $400,000 to an entity owned and controlled by Hunter Biden.
That was called a Wasco PC.
Next, Hunter Biden wired $150,000 to Lionhall Group, a company owned by James and Sarah Biden.
James is Joe Biden's brother. Sarah is James's wife.
Sarah Biden then withdrew $50,000 in cash from Lionhall Group. Later the same day, she deposited it into her and James Biden's personal checking account.
So where does Joe Biden figure in all this?
A few days later, Sarah Biden cut a check to Joe Biden for $40,000.
$40,000 is 10% of that original $400,000 transfer payment, and a percentage that may sound familiar as a claim by a former Hunter business associate that a piece of the CEFC was earmarked for Joe Biden.
On May 13, 2017, I received an email concerning allocation of equity, which says 10% held by H for the big guy. In that email, there's no question that H stands for Hunter, big guy for his father, Joe Biden.
So what do Biden defenders say that the $40,000 was for?
The memo line of the check said loan repayment.
Which may well be true.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
The second check to Mr. Biden, again from James and Sarah Biden, was for $200,000. According to House Oversight, in 2018, James Biden received $600,000 in loans from a rural hospital operator called AmeriCorps, which was struggling financially. Company bankruptcy documents say James Biden received these loans based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors, and that he could obtain a large investment from the Middle East based on his political connections.
On March 1st, 2018, AmeriCorps wired a $200,000 loan into James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business bank account. And then on the very same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check from this same personal bank account to Joe Biden.
Again, the check memo line said that this was a loan repayment, which it may well have been. But the fact remains that the White House has already changed its response regarding the president's business relationship with his son.
The president was never in business with his son.
And now it's changed again. Mr. Biden did not profit from his family members' business ventures, reads ranking oversight Democrat Jamie Raskin's statement. With James Comer's latest bank memo, questions about the Biden family's business dealings are mounting.
The bank records don't end here. There's more to come.
Right. And Yeah, here are the text messages that they're talking about there. The chairman, the number one, it's Xi Jinping. That's kind of who's directing this from behind the scenes. Here we have a few more text documents to kind of substantiate what they're saying here. So yeah, I mean, it's basically kind of what I've been saying from the start. This is a Manchurian candidate. Joe Biden, it was, I mean, however you want to frame it, that election that happened in 2020 was not on the up and up. Looks like there was all kinds of, illegalities and shenanigans afoot. So, and basically everything that Joe Biden's been doing since he was in office is to benefit China. It's, whether it's handing Afghanistan to them in a nice, neat little bow, or spending all of NATO's blood and treasure in Ukraine so that we're left in a position unable to defend Taiwan, which is kind of what this is really all about. That's Joe Biden's whole purpose, really, is to, do the bidding of Taiwan, I think, and manage the decline of the West. What are your thoughts there, Dacey?
Yeah, it's that decline of the West thing is exactly it. I mean, if it's not China, it's somebody that's basically an enemy to America. It's anti-America, anti-Western. He says America's doing so great. He's overseen one of the worst declines in the shortest possible amount of time in history. And you hear that 10% off the top. We've heard that so many times, right? 10% to the big guy. It's not just this one case. There's case after case of these examples of his son, or I'm sure there's tons of other people that are using his name and exerting influence and cash for access, and they're obviously in cahoots. And it would be bad enough if they were in cahoots with Americans, or doing some underhanded business. At least it was Americans. But when you're doing it with the literal enemy, it's not good stuff. It's not good stuff. And I mean, that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, right? Where there's one of these, there's tons. This wasn't, these aren't isolated incidents. This is standard operating procedure for these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of these people and their standard operating procedures, here's a quick look back. Something I don't think that many people watching this show haven't seen already, but here we go.
He was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a.
He was asked which country.
So that's always kind of been my question. I mean, if Biden is advertising to the Chinese in 2017 that he's going to run for president in 2020, and he's cashing in on that. My question has always been, like, was this incident Trudeau signaling to the people who are really in charge that he is willing to be the lapdog that they're looking for? What do you think, Dacey?
Yeah, well, I mean, his actions would lead me to say that he was definitely doing that. I mean, there's quite a while ago, but I mean, everything he's done since would straight out of a communist playbook almost. Man, Trudeau too. Like, Trudeau came out and his statement about he's a great man. He respects. Yeah, of course he does. He likes the guy who works with the enemy. He respects the dictatorship. He respects it because he wants to be able to do things like China. That's what he did. He likes the fact that they can just come and do whatever they want to their people. Something I don't like, they disappear you. People were saying things he didn't like, and he sent the full force of every law enforcement agency that he could find to come down and crush his own people illegally, I might add. So no wonder, he said he appreciated it, and he went and acted exactly like somebody in the CCP would act, except he did it on Canadian soil as a Canadian Prime Minister to Canadian citizens.
Yeah, and it seems like they lifted a few tactics from the communist playbook with respect to Tiananmen Square. I mean, people, I think, aptly dubbed the trucker convoy crackdown Canada's Tiananmen Square. And one of the things that they did, for example, is they brought in all these police forces from outside of Ottawa. So primarily the people doing the dirty work were not familiar with the situation on the ground there. And that was something that they did in Tiananmen as well. Like, they brought police forces in from surrounding areas, and they were the ones who were there to clear the protest. And because the propaganda was all broadcasting that these were terrorist subverters, the military and the police were quite aggressive with them. And I think that that's a parallel that can be drawn between what happened with the Emergency Measures Act invocation and what happened in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, that's an important thing to note, right? So we had lots of Ottawa police and OPP kind of doing traffic throughout the course of the convoy, you know, for the first 2 weeks or even 3 weeks. But there was a noticeable shift in personnel. And when it was that last day, you know, you had the heavily like full riot gear, almost looked like bomb squad guys from Quebec in. You had all these Toronto Region police officers. It was all out of area police. And that's something that I try to point out quite often because you know, they bring these people in. It's the same thing I think they're trying to do with advertising for police forces now, and the military looking to hire temporary foreign workers as policemen or as military. You know, it's the same type of issue could come up there. And you mentioned Tiananmen Square. You know, there was that joke. Was it Marco Mendicino that was texting about joking around about, oh, we'd only need one tank. May have been tongue in cheek, perhaps, but they might not have had tanks, but they certainly had armored vehicles. You know, they had Bearcats or whatever those are called. They had guys up there with, you know, with service rifles in weapons nests, and these guys had weapons pointed at us. I mean, I was probably 20 feet from one of those armored vehicles. There was two guys in that, one guy with a weapon and one guy with a camera, and I wasn't sure who to be more worried about. One guy with a telephoto lens that you know is taking pictures of all of us to come after us later. The other guy with the weapon, I was pretty sure he wouldn't shoot me. But you know, I guess you never know. But I was almost more nervous with the guy with the cameras. What are they doing? You know, they're building dossiers on us. They're compiling files, and you know, we've seen what they can do to people for you know, the full weight of the government and lawfare comes down upon. It's nasty stuff.
Yeah, I remember having my picture taken several times while I was there, and it was like with a big Magnum lens, you know, not exactly a citizen journalist. And I remember, you know, I see these pictures being taken, and then I'm watching for something in the news to see, you know, if I end up making the news, I guess, and it never comes. And so then I'm left wondering, like, what was the purpose of that picture? Because they definitely seemed very interested in what I was doing. So, yeah, I share your concern in that regard. And I mean, it was Steve Bell, Tinker Bell, who said that we will hunt you down. Like, if you even so much as donated to this protest, we're coming for you. So yeah, seems like they're the police are more and more in the business of hunting down political dissidents than they are in the business of enforcing the law.
Yeah, and they're still at it, right? I mean, we have cases this long out. We have cases that are still yet to go to court or yet to be heard, but we have ongoing cases. Any case that gets dismissed or somebody's found not guilty, these Crown prosecutors are appealing them. You know, the whole weight of the government. Whoever a nonviolent mischief charge that takes, you know, a year to go and to adjudicate, and then you get an actual finding of not guilty in some of these things, and you have these Crown prosecutors that are using every resource they have to try to retry and find any which way they can to go after the people. And you know, when they appeal, it costs more money, more time in the system. Like it's wild. And the fact that they're using these resources, you know, they're supposed to do things that are in the public interest. And I don't see how anyone could make a reasonable argument that going after people for nonviolent mischief years later, appealing, you know, not guilty verdicts. There's no way any of this is in the public interest. There's tons and tons, like untold amounts of money being spent. There's all kinds of crimes and criminals that are just being let go. You know, serious crimes that are not being prosecuted. Well, they go after this stuff, and it's purely political. There's no other reasonable or rational explanation for it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I would be remiss if I didn't point to this connection. Here is Dr. Evil, Klaus Schwab.
The World Economic Forum has been involved in China since 1979. And we have been part of the development of this country now for nearly 30 years.
I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous over the last over 40 years. I think it's a role model for many countries. The Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries. The World Economic Forum has...
So that is one connection that I'm always pointing to there. I kind of think that the WEF is basically an influence operation for the Chinese Communist Party. It's like an elite capture strategy where they influence these elites, can bring them into Davos there once a year where they can schmooze them and probably eventually ensnare them in some kind of a, you know, blackmail scheme or something like that. But yeah, so not only is Trudeau admiring of China's basic dictatorship, as we can see, Klaus Schwab is pretty effusive for them as well, and he calls Xi Jinping His Excellency and invites the premier of the Chinese Communist Party to chair the WEF forum on rebuilding global trust. So it all looks they all look a little too cozy to me. What do you think, Dacey?
Yeah, I mean, man, listen to that guy talk. It's like if you were to write an evil character and the accent and the look of him, man, it's like something out of a book, but it's real, unfortunately. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, still overheating.
Okay. I'll keep power on through, brother. You just let me know. Here is just Trudeau's ego. And he says, Minister of Affairs, Melanie Joly, just got back from her secret trip to China, where she met with Chinese government officials. 2 months ago, 11 of my MPs were found to be leaking state secrets to the Chinese government. I've ordered the media to stay silent about this trip because of how suspicious and inappropriate it looks. No kidding. That's what was going on in the news here just late last week with Melanie Joly sneaking off to China, and we have to find out courtesy of the Chinese government. So here is Noah Chartier, and he's tweeting out this screen cap. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the People's Republic of China, Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs Melanie Joly to visit China. They're announcing it on their Foreign Affairs website here for the Chinese Foreign Affairs website, but we have to find out courtesy of them. And here's Andy Lee, and she is sharing out some WeChat stuff. As you can see, it's written in those idiotic Mandarin letters. This is Melanie Joly's picture that goes along with this write-up. And Andy Lee, according to Andy Lee, she says, a lovely piece on Melanie Joly's trip. It says she was called to Beijing to be, quote unquote, reprimanded, and that the, quote, Trudeau government has become the loyal dog of the United States, close quote. It goes on to finish by saying they're upgrading the sticks they got to beat dogs with. Great success. Okay. I think she's being a little bit tongue in cheek there, but probably not far off. So not looking good. What do you think, Dace?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that if it was on the up and up and she was going there and on some type of proper diplomatic mission, you'd think that the government would want to share that, right? Anytime they're not telling you, there's a reason. We shouldn't have to find out from the Chinese. That's for sure. It's interesting too, like when that clip, I was choking to death. I wanted to say something about Schwab there. He's the same person that has publicly said, right, that how much of our cabinet and our government is captured. Like we've installed people all over the government. I mean, he said it publicly. It's not like this stuff is secret. And I mean, all their actions indicate that this is true.
Yeah.
It's so in our face, man, that like it's basically undeniable.
Yeah, and the walls are closing in. I think it's really only a matter of time, really, before we start to see some results. It's going to be a couple of years yet, probably. But yeah, I mean, I think it's so in your face now, and so many people are waking up. I think the attempt on Trump's life is probably waking a lot of people up. We were showing some tweets on that here last week, and it's like women's studies majors are professing their love for Donald Trump out there. So there are some good signs to be seen, and the tide, I think, is turning, but they're not going down without a fight. So Dacey, here you are catching Marco Mendicino, and he's calling for the creation of what?
Yeah, safety zones to protect MPs. So, like we hear this all the time, right? We have this threat. MPs are being harassed or whatever the case is, right? They take an isolated incident or they make it up or whatever they want to do. And, they want to implement new laws, right? So we have laws on the books to protect people from harassment, from stalking, from abuse, from violence, all kinds of things. But this is yet another attempt to, I think it's to curtail our ability to get any kind of accountability or to protest.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've already shown that we can't protest. It's like you go to Parliament Hill where you're supposed to protest, and they wouldn't let us on there during the trucker convoy. I had to stay down in the streets for the most part, and then they said you're blocking the street, and came in and beat us all up. Okay, we can't protest on Parliament Hill. We can't protest in the streets in Ottawa. So what we can do is maybe just let our politicians know how unhappy we are by telling them in the streets, shouting to them across the street. And now it looks like they're trying to put the kibosh to that. So, no dissent allowed. And here's Dacey from Ottawa. Oh,
Here, live on Parliament Hill. Some other interesting news I was seeing today. Marco Mendicino, former public safety minister, is suggesting that, that safety zones be established around MP offices, constituency offices, to shield the MPs and staff from possible harm or violence. My thoughts on that. First of all, I don't know if we've seen any real incidents. We have recently. There was the office attacked in downtown Montreal. So there was an office attacked, I believe it was yesterday, by pro-Palestinian demonstrators, if that matters. So that's one incident. But I can't think really of an incident where there's been any kind of major threat or violence or anything like that outside constituency offices. There has been lately, and more lately, I guess, than in the past. There's definitely been protests and people that try to go to constituency offices. Think of Tyrant Patrol right offhand. They go down to constituency offices. No one will ever talk to them. There's never really any interaction, and there's certainly no issue. Sounds like they're trying to use possible threats, right? So we do know what happened in the U.S. Obviously, that's concerning, but it seems like they're trying to use this kind of thing as an excuse, right? They want to establish a 50 or 100 meter perimeter around these MPs' offices, constituency offices, and then anyone in that area who harasses or otherwise intimidates a person. And I would imagine that those things are probably, pretty subjective. So those people would be liable to much heftier penalties, including jail time, if they were in that buffer zone around an MP office. What that seems to me is just an excuse and an infringement, to try to stop legal and lawful protest. We have governments that are accountable to no one, and they're trying to yet again curtail our lawful right to protest and to try to have, our public officials should be public and should be accessible, and they're not. There's no way to get in touch with these people. There's no way to hold them accountable. Standing outside their office, at least it's visible. And, they're using these vague threats and possible threats as a reason to yet again curtail our charter protected rights. It's kind of craziness, if you ask me. This is Trudeau's office, as you tell behind me. I wonder if that would count, Trudeau's office. I would be inside the zone. If I harassed or otherwise intimidated Mr. Trudeau, I would be subject to massive fines and possible jail time, I guess. And also it should be noted that we have laws on the books that would protect people against all these things. If you are doing anything illegal, if you're harassing someone, if you're a danger, if you're committing crimes, like we have tons and tons of laws on the books already. Probably way too many laws on the books. What we need is simple. We don't need more complex, crazy scenario laws that they bring in for one reason and then use against us later for another, right? They'll say, this office was attacked by Palestinian protesters this time. Wow, we need this new law. And then they use it to kick us out of areas and to fine and imprison us. It's craziness. It doesn't take a real genius to see what's going on here. So that was just another piece of news I was reading while I was down here. Mr. Trudeau is in the office today. Seems like he may be having meetings. We got news earlier today that Seamus O'Regan has resigned his cabinet position. He'll stay on as MP till for this term, but he will not be running again. He cited family issues, wanting to be a better husband and father or some such thing. I guess maybe that's a hard one to question. I mean, if that is the case, I guess that is a noble pursuit, but I don't believe a word that snake says. So it's probably not that. This could be one of many people jumping ship. He could have gotten a sweetheart deal to make room for someone else to come in. Who knows? But there's supposed to be cabinet meetings tomorrow, so we should see some more moves coming tomorrow, and we might see some more rats jumping from this ship here, and who knows what's to come. But we should have more news tomorrow. Dacey from Parliament Hill, out.
All right. So a couple of things in there, but the big one is this idea that we need more laws to help the politicians feel better about all the abuses they're inflicting on us. So we're not allowed to talk about that,
I read something too recently. The Sergeant at Arms says that harassment of members of Parliament is up 800% in 5 years. I mean, first of all, who's been in power for 5 years? I wonder why people are upset. But you read statements like this; they're quoted. The Sergeant at Arms said, I mean, based on what data have you seen a crime? Is there a conviction that we can see? Are there threats? Are there violence? Never provides evidence with this stuff. They just use these terms. There's online threats or a hostile kind of atmosphere, and then they, like I said, they use it to pass a law or a new law, and we know these things will be used against us for sure.
Yeah, 1,000%. And the thing about it is, like, they're kind of, as usual, they're telegraphing what it is that they're going to do. And we have a newly appointed RCMP boss after the disaster dumpster fire that was Brenda Lucky. And here he is, Mike Duhamey, and he's the title of the CTV News article is RCMP boss expresses desire for new law to deal with threats against politicians. Now, the word that he used, I believe, was invictus. He's saying that we need more laws to deal with hurt feelings of politicians from mean tweets and the like. But then there's this. This is also CTV News, and this is from July 22nd. So just today. And title is Two Albertans Accused of Threatening to Kill Trudeau, Freeland Singh. So here we go. Men from Edmonton and Calgary are accused of threatening to kill some of Canada's top government leaders. On May 10th, Mounties were alerted about a threat to kill Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. Mason John Baker, a 23-year-old Calgary resident, was charged on June 6th with uttering threats against a person contrary to Section 26411 Alpha of the Criminal Code. Okay, so there are sections of the Criminal Code like 26411 Alpha, and that will deal with threats against politicians, regardless of whether or not they are online. It doesn't say anywhere that it's okay to break this particular section of the Criminal Code as long as it's online. That's not the case at all, but they seem to be pretending as if it were. So what's really going on here anyway, Dacey?
Yeah, exactly. They have the laws, and even this stuff, right? Like, they have these laws and they choose when they want to use them, right? It doesn't give much detail in that article. I believe that's where I got the quote from the Sergeant at Arms from, it, probably that article. But they give little to no detail. We have laws already to deal with this. And, I don't like to cry, come out and say, somebody go through my emails if you want to see a list of threats or threats to person. Like, they're completely selective about this thing. They don't give a crap about people threatening me or everyday individuals. These politicians are not actually under threat. I don't think, people say things and things can get taken out of context. If somebody made a direct threat, by all means, I mean, that's criminal. You shouldn't do that. I don't condone that kind of thing. Nobody should be doing it. But, the laws exist. If somebody's threatening, they can be dealt with, whether they're online or in person. They have massive amounts of resources to deal with this. So if these people are really dangerous, that the RCMP or CSIS are probably on it. My real thing that sticks to me is that these laws aren't even enforced for us, for the people, right? They want to protect these politicians who are unaccountable, who are tyrannizing us like crazy. They're completely out of control and corrupt, and they don't protect. Like, these laws are not being used the way they're supposed to, right? If an individual, I've been threatened dozens and dozens of times with plenty of evidence, and nobody's ever cared, right? They're not concerned about that kind of thing. They're concerned about having a headline, right? This is a good headline. 2 people were threatened. Now they can use that, and people are scared. Oh, well, we need this law that Mendocino was talking about, right? It's all kind of like a circle jerk around kind of thing, and one hand feeds the other. I write this, I quote that, and we all use the same thing, and none of it's really what it appears to be.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of Herbert Marcuse's essay, his famous essay called "Liberating Tolerance," which is actually repressive tolerance. It's all the tolerance in the world for leftist causes and intolerance towards any right-wing causes. And so it's not just like the political class that they seem to want to protect, but the Hamas holes can go out there and demonstrate in the streets and basically get away with murder. It seems like maybe there's some pushback on that now, but they're bringing them coffees and all this stuff. So there's all kinds of tolerance towards the left wingers, but really, I think it's the central feature of this is the intolerance towards the right wingers. It's like the left wingers are still allowed to protest and they're allowed to be upset with politicians, but when it comes to the right wingers, then they get the jackboots, right?
Yeah, and I mean the few times that there's even like the kid glove kind of enforcement against the left, you should hear the turmoil that comes. Like they talk about, they go down to the police station, they yell and scream and actually threaten police. They make demands of police, of politicians. Some of the rhetoric and some of the stuff is, I mean, it could very well qualify as threatening and intimidating. And they go ahead and do that if they were treated even remotely like we have been treated, they would completely lose it. It's very, very rare that something gets enforced. It has to be pretty extreme. And when it happens, there is basically man, it's a shitstorm. It's craziness. I've seen like a mob of people, one of their guys gets arrested. They blockade in front of, say, Parliament, with plywood barriers in front of the House of Commons, take over a whole block. Then they get pissed off their guys arrested, and a mob of 1,000 people gets escorted by police to go and close down the street in front of the police station. It's
Yeah. And you guys, like, you'll be out there with the Wellington Street regulars and you have these little signs stuck in the snow on the grass beside the sidewalk, and they'll come and fine you for encumbering a highway. But meanwhile, the assholes can, build forts outside of Parliament in the same area, and they're not treated with the same kind of intolerance, right?
I've seen them put together wooden structures, scaffoldings on wheels to with plywood signs, 2-story scaffolds, man, with giant speakers on top. It took for a university for months.
Yeah.
Wild, man.
Meanwhile, we have Brian Dirksen back in court here. You want to set this one up for us, Dacey? What the heck is going on with Brian Dirksen?
So, yeah, man, that's a long story, but in short, so Brian Dirksen is the trucker that never left. He came down. He's from out west. Came down during the convoy. He's been through the ringer. They took his truck, impounded. He got it back. The whole to do with that. He's been the target of police in Ottawa for a long time. He's been charged multiple times. He's had all kinds of his stuff confiscated, his personal memorabilia destroyed, his car impounded and sold, and all these things. He has one out of everything he's ever been charged with. Every single one has been stayed, dismissed, or they never went to trial, right? So they were dropped, stayed, or dismissed. I believe he had one pending case that's supposed to be in about 6 months, and that was for something that he was fighting one of these things, and he got nailed for filming in a courthouse. So that one is still going. The charges that he was facing then have been dropped. Everything to do with everything before was dropped. So he has that one outstanding thing, but other than that, he was basically free, except he had conditions to not attend any Ontario courthouse unless for court business. And he's had these conditions for quite a while. The conditions are from charges that have been stayed and dropped, actually. But he still was carrying these conditions. So Brian Dirksen had basically been protesting at the Ottawa courthouse for, probably a couple of months, but quite regularly for a couple of weeks. And one evening, Ottawa police decided that or whoever decided, the police came in, they decided that it also included court property. Somewhere that every single police officer that works in the court would have seen him on the court property out front with his signs. Crowns would have seen him. Everyone would have seen him. But this day, they just decided that was a breach, and they came in, arrested him. He spent a couple of days in jail. He's on all kinds of conditions, and they've now set a trial date for this breach and the additional charges a year from now. So he's looking at, he's finally kind of out of the weight of most of this, and all of a sudden he's out now on bail from this breach with a bunch of conditions that he has to abide by, and he's not back in court to face these charges or to do anything about it for another year. So he's facing another full year of lawfare, basically.
Yeah. And it's a complete shakedown too. We're seeing a lot of that where, I had my mask violations tossed out because the first time the witnesses didn't show up. The next time the Crown withdrew the charges just a day or two out from the trial. I filed my charter defenses and never got my day in court. I think that Morgan Guptill was in a similar situation there with some of her pandemic violations. So yeah, a lot of this kind of lawfare, like you say, total shakedown. But here's Dacey outside the courthouse.
So Dirksen matter just finished. Brian, there you go. He has to immediately vacate the courthouse property as he's not allowed on the courthouse property. Craziness. His matter today was basically in relation to a breach for being on this property. There was some terribly written conditions from an incident way back, and Brian Dirksen was over here on the property. It was under the understanding that he was allowed on the property, not allowed in the building. There was some confusion. I don't think it was confusion, but they came after him and breached him for it. So he will be in court in a year, basically, from now. So June of next year, will be in court for this matter. So that, at the very minimum, will drag out Brian's time here and his dealings with the courthouse and with the slew of charges that have been levied against him, almost every single one of which has now been dismissed, stayed, or dropped. Brian has to go now another year before he can deal with this matter.
Yeah, total lawfare. And Colleen was just saying the process is the punishment, and Rob was saying the same thing. Yeah, that is that's what I say as well. I mean, the process is the punishment. That's what they're doing. It's, you don't get your day in court, but you still get beat up by the cops, and you still get thrown in the slammer, and you still get your rights violated. You don't get your day in court, right? So the punishment is having to deal with the legal fees and all the stress of having to being all tangled up in these in this litigation. The violation of your dignity represented by the infringement of your rights and being thrown in jail. So that is they're extracting their punishment through these means, through lawfare means, even though nobody's really getting convicted in the end.
Exactly. You hit on that with when you said we're talking about your masks, right? They'll often bring it right till the court, right? So you spend all the money, you go through the stress, you have all these different court appearances, you got to have lawyer for this, lawyer for that. And then right when it comes time to put some stuff on the record and have your chance to actually say something and defend yourself, they withdraw it. And you're left there, right? So, and then, you're not guilty. So then they still have these, you'll get articles and things where he was accused, and they'll make a point of saying that it was stayed and could be, but, technically they could bring this stuff back. They drop it. Doesn't mean you weren't convicted. And they still kind of leave this thing hanging over your head. There may be a statute on that of how long they can do that kind of thing, but, it's not just all gone. And without this chance to actually have your day in court, you go through all that. These people really it's like another violation, right? Another affront to them. You've been through all this. You've been accused of all these things, and then when it's your time, and most people have evidence, right? And they want to speak to these matters, and they don't get the chance. So not only do they go through all this, they never get their chance to say their piece or get it on the record, and that's just another attack on them, and something they have to live with. There's no recourse, right?
Yeah. I think that's the way they're trying to set it up too. Like that there would be no recourse. Like, what are you supposed to do? This is the way the system is set up, and they know it. But we do have Joe Biden out of the way, and a lot of people are pushing Trudeau. But at the same time, I think we're going to be at this for a few years yet. And here's Dan Clutchy, and he says, "You say it's Jover, but I say it's just commencing." And he's got Kamala Harris here, and she's being sworn in as the vice president. Oh, wonderful. And here is a graphic that this is a graph. If you're just listening, it's got two lines on it. One is red, it spikes early and goes low. The other is blue, it starts low and spikes near the end. And the blue is, these are Google searches. The blue is for Biden is dead. And as you can see, they stayed low right up until end of July here, and then they spiked. And the other one is donate to Kamala. That's the red line. So they were high early, but around the same time that searches for Biden is dead are spiking, searches for donate to Kamala are plummeting. So that is not good for them. And here's one that Dacey sent over here. This is about 4 minutes. I think I'll just play a minute or two here.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be
unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What we can see, what we believe can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been.
What can be, unburdened by what has been.
Who we can be, unburdened by who we have been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. Where we can be, unburdened by where we have been, and unburdened by where we are right now. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be, unburdened by what has been. What?
Okay, I think that's enough.
Yeah. It's so terrible, and like the way she enunciates it sometimes makes the sentence not sensible. Like depending where you put these commas, right? Like sometimes I can't even understand what she's saying at all. Really.
Oh, it's
and
worth salad.
that goes on for 4 minutes, man. That's worse than Mr. Speaker.
Too
To
much.
be clear,
It really is just 4 minutes of Kamala repeating that same catchphrase that somebody else wrote for her. So I don't think we need to watch the whole 4 minutes. You guys get the idea. It's pretty painful.
There's one like out of her cackling is why anyone who's listened to her. I've never heard her actually say anything really of substance. But there's another one like that where all she's doing is cackling at inappropriate times for about 5 minutes. You know, every show, you know, they ask her a question. Hey! Oh man, it's painful. Painful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she does. She sounds like, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West. So, and this is the conundrum that the Democrats find themselves in now. Here is one of their propaganda machines, CNN, and the Chiron says Biden drops out. Quote, "It's time to come together and beat Trump," close quote. Okay, and this is Anderson Cooper, and I recognize this guy, but I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, here we go.
Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro is being discussed.
There you go, Josh Shapiro. Okay, no, this isn't him. Sorry, but go ahead.
Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro is being discussed as one of Harris's potential running mates. He also endorsed her tonight. In your view, what are the pros and cons for putting him on the ticket?
Well, he's certainly under consideration. I know that from key Harris allies. He's a first-term governor. He's Jewish. There could be some risks in putting him on the ticket, but certainly some of our...
He's Jewish, so there could be some risks in putting him on the ticket. At least he's open about it.
Our voters here in Pennsylvania said, hey, we like Governor Shapiro, give him a look. Also told O. Anderson that some other governors, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, are on the list of the Harris team. One Harris ally told me today they hope to get her within a few days, assuming her path to the nomination continues to look good, and it does tonight, but we still have some question marks. They hope to get her a list, they say within several days to a week, of 4 or 5 names for her to pick from.
Pennsylvania's Governor Josh.
Yeah. So not hard to tell, like all the left anti-Semitism is very much a leftist kind of trope. And this is the other thing too, like they're talking about Shapiro, and he's also the governor of Pennsylvania. So this is a potential running mate for Harris. And well, there's this.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. There's no question.
So Pennsylvania is a fracking state, and they're putting forward their governor, who is also Jewish, and that might be a problem. So him being Jewish is a problem for the Democrats, and the Democrats being against fracking is a problem for Pennsylvania. But this right now is the front runner for Kamala's pick for VP, assuming she's even going to be the nominee. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I was going to ask that, right? So I mean, she's been endorsed in that, but it is not necessarily a guarantee that she will be the nominee. I guess there's a way that they can kind of push this through and not go to the convention, I believe. But I mean, this stuff is complicated. I've never been in a situation like this, so I don't know exactly how it works.
Well, the primaries are really kind of for the purpose of taking the temperature, as is my understanding. So they kind of put the presumptive nominee out there for the convention, but at the convention, they're still going to vote to see like whoever is on the stage, like whichever one of the candidates on the stage is actually going to be the nominee. So I think they're still going to nominate somebody. That's still going to happen. It's just that Joe Biden is not the presumptive nominee anymore. So I guess that puts Kamala in the hot seat in that regard because she's the VP. So she seems like the obvious shoe-in. But it's not a guarantee. I don't think she's still got to show up there and get the votes in order to be the nominee. So
I don't know, like, if you're a Democrat, I don't know if even for them, like, why her? I don't think she's going to help the situation.
She's not likable.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And Dan Bongino had a good take on this too. This is a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes. It's just a few seconds, I think, before he kind of gets into it. I had it queued up, but it looks like it's back to the start again. But anyway, I'll let Dan Bongino's coverage has been awesome since the Trump. Well, I always like Bongino, but he's been all over the Trump assassination attempt and stuff like that too. But anyway, here is his take on what's happening with the Democrat regime at the moment.
Let's talk about some palace intrigue here in your home for breaking news. This you'll hear, this is an exclusive to me, of course. And the Michigan poll's out there. I don't want to sound like a jerk, like I'm the first person to think of it. I'm not, but I haven't heard much of it on any broadcast so far. Palace intrigue. Ladies and gentlemen, Kamala Harris is going to start a DEI war if they bypass her. I absolutely guarantee it. Kamala Harris there is going to be a DEI war. I'm going to walk through tomorrow in detail the mechanics of the convention and what it's going to look like if they don't pick a nominee before. They may virtually nominate Kamala Harris before. They're going forward with this early August virtual thing. Remember what happened with the state of Ohio? They had to virtually nominate Biden so they can get him on the ballot in Ohio. As of now, this broadcast, Sunday evening at 5:07, as of now, they are still going ahead with that. That's important. That's important because it doesn't give them a lot of time. Kamala Harris right now is putting out the message I am hearing from well-placed people. Kamala, see, here's Harris here. She's honored to have the president's endorsement. Thank you, Justin, for getting that. Look at Justin by himself. She's like a little arrogant now. Kraken, I'm kidding.
She says, I am honored to have the president's endorsement, but I didn't see it in that letter. So where was the endorsement? I'm not. It's very tepid, I would say at best.
I can chill, bro. Chill. It's Sunday night. Working all week. Chill, bro. Kamala Harris's people, I'm hearing from well-placed sources, are telling anyone who will listen, media, donors, activists, bureaucrats, congressmen, senators, governors, you come out against me, we're going to call you a racist.
Yeah, so that's about the size of it. The left is in the process of eating itself. We've seen that elsewhere as well. Well, what do you think? Is it going to be a DEI war, left on left? Here is another part of the Democrat propaganda machine. MSDNC. Here we go.
And I've heard from inside Republican circles and right-wing media that the hate campaign against Kamala Harris has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. They say Kamala. They do it all the time. It is on purpose. But the talk is to start that hate campaign and get it going and start it churning. And I've heard from inside.
Okay. So what do you think, Dacey?
What is it in? What is her name?
I don't know. I guess it's Kamala. Kamala?
Kamala? Yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous. Can't say anything, right? Like if you're a woman, if you're like a woman of color, right? No criticism allowed. You guys are all hateful idiots. Man. Yeah. We don't need to attack her for being a woman. We can attack her for her terrible record and her ineptness.
Yeah. And she is slightly woke. Here's a clip from a while back, but yeah, here we go.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
I am a woman sitting at a table wearing a blue suit.
I forgot about them doing that. They were really big on that for a while, and everybody in the start of Zoom meetings and everything would describe themselves and whatnot. Oh my God, Jeff, we didn't do our land acknowledgement. You didn't do your pronouns. You didn't describe your outfit. We're going in. We're hate crimes all around.
Yeah. All that's missing is the land acknowledgement. So, and we got peak moments right there. So the DEI, I think, is like this whole DEI that they've weaponized against the right. Live by the sword, die by the sword. So I think that's kind of where things are going on the left right now. Here's a 5-minute clip from the hearings in the U.S. Congress. There, they have the director of the Secret Service pulled in front of them right now, but this is about 5 minutes long. I think I'm just going to let it play because it's quite valuable start to finish. So here we go.
Were agents or officers inside the building? If so, what floor were they on?
We had local police officers inside the building.
The roof looks like it's a tin roof. How did no one inside that building hear someone moving on top of a metal roof?
I don't have the details of all of the interviews that have been conducted yet.
When will you have those?
I have been asking, and I want to have that information as soon as you do.
Okay.
She was at the RNC, by the way. She showed up at the Republican National Convention. What the hell was she doing there? Nobody knows. I mean, it's got no business being there. She should be in an ops center somewhere for about 18 to 20 hours a day until all of this gets sorted out. But I digress.
Did Secret Service fail to block the line of sight from that roof?
I think that the Secret Service put together a plan where they were counting that roof in as part of their overwatch, and that was the plan that they had put in place that day.
If you weren't going to put a security personnel on the roof, why not at least use drone technology or aerial surveillance to monitor the rally?
There are a number of times that we do use drone technology. I'm not speaking specifically to this event and what was utilized or not. There are times when drone technology is available and helpful at events, and there are times when it is not appropriate.
So in other words, it was not used. And this is, I think, one of the things that Dacey and I discussed last week. There's just the failure across the board by the Secret Service. And I am still advancing this idea that it's just gross ineptitude at the highest levels. And here we find that they didn't even have a drone doing Overwatch on this thing. It seems like that would be pretty standard, but that's where we are right now. It's the state of the Secret Service.
Y'all use Signal. Do you personally use Signal to communicate with any official from the White House? Signal on your phone.
On occasion, I'm sure that there are people that use Signal. Yes.
Okay. Do you use it to speak with the White House? Use Signal?
No, I do not.
Okay. When was Thomas Crooks first identified as a person of interest? Let me help you. At 5:10, he was spotted with a rangefinder at 5:51. And when did Secret Service notice him?
Again, I don't have those specific timelines, but it was a relatively short period of time.
Let me help you. 5:52. Ms. Cheadle, why was President Trump allowed on stage 10 minutes after the Secret Service spotted a suspicious individual? That seems to me to be the worst thing of all. Of all the breakdown and all this communication, all the BS you've been feeding us here today or not feeding us, that seems to be the question.
So as I've stated before, there are a number of events where suspicious people may be identified. That doesn't necessarily.
Ma'am, I submit to you, you got a guy who's going to be the next president of the United States. He's on stage. I've been to these events. We've all been to these events. A car backfires and there's a 15-minute dadgum wait. That's not acceptable. Did the Secret Service tell President Trump they'd spotted a suspicious individual before he was shot?
I am unclear as to what the communication was with the former president.
Okay,
at that
I'll
time.
take that as a no. Did y'all deny President Trump's request for more security? Yes or no? And when was the most recent request for additional security?
The rally request for security, all of those requests were fulfilled.
And were there any personnel redirected to Jill Biden's rally?
No.
Who made the decision on the direction of agents at either one of those rallies?
I'm unclear as to your question on the direction of the agents.
I said, who directed those agents to be at Miss Biden's rally or President Trump's rally? The specific agents.
So there is a methodology in which agents are available for assignments, and they are assigned based on either geographic location or logistics or flight.
Ma'am, I appreciate all that, but that methodology about got President Trump killed. Was the security detail guarding President Trump a temporary detail?
The personnel who are assigned to the former president's detail are assigned to him.
Why was there a different detail on the opening night of the convention than the detail that was guarding him in Pennsylvania?
The president has a very large permanent protective detail assigned to him. They work shift work, and so it could be that people you saw at the rally were not working the same shift the day that he was.
I can assure you, ma'am, somebody that's a lot shorter than the president was not at the convention, and the people that were cowering down behind the mass of agents that were on top of the president were not in the convention hall. At least I didn't see them. You can't seem to answer a single question about an ongoing investigation, ma'am, and you don't know when the information will be released publicly. Are you waiting for the administration to sign off?
No, I am waiting for the results of the investigation, at which time.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question. You found explosives in the shooter's possession. Is that correct?
The FBI found explosives.
Do we know who directed this young man how to make those explosives?
I believe that the FBI is still looking into that on their investigation.
Ms. Cheadle, you said that the buck stops with me, and I agree. I don't think you should resign. I think you should have been fired. Ma'am, you are a DEI horror story. I've told my daughter multiple times, my wife and my daughter, we talk to her all the time about how she's going to succeed in life. She'll succeed in life by achieving. Ma'am, you have not achieved today. You've let the American public down.
All right. So yeah, DEI horror story. That seems to be that seems to be the direction these things are taking. And I think this is pretty much what we called right off the bat last week. So what do you think, Dacey?
Yeah, I think I tend to think that along the same lines as you, that it's a whole bunch of these hires. I mean, these policies have been started to be put in place a long time ago, right? We've had affirmative action and these kinds of hiring. She's been, I forget how many years it said. So, I mean, she does have training. She does have some training and she has some experience. But she ended up at that position not as the most qualified person. There's no way. If that's the most qualified person for that position in the Secret Service, then they are all in much, much bigger trouble. So, you combine this with a whole bunch of things, right? You got the two, or at least two women that were half the height of the president, or the former president, at the attempted assassination. The next time it's all big, massive men. Every one of them is at least 6'2" or 6'3". I believe Trump's 6'3", and they all appear to be taller than him. That's not a hard thing to do, and it's not a man or a woman thing. Hit these markers, and you can have the job. If you can do the, whatever the position is, right? There's going to have to be certain qualifiers. It doesn't have to be an issue about men or women, or black or white, or any other thing. Just let the standard be the standard, and then put the best person in the job. But clearly, that hasn't been happening. And when these things play out over time, you get more and more people in these positions. Not just the rank and file, but you get them at the very top of organizations. And this is what happens. This is the result of those kinds of policies, those kinds of positions. And we're going to probably see problems like this. And when we look at Boeing, look at all these private companies, public companies, the government, you're going to see more and more of these issues in more and more places, and more breakdowns as these hires are getting into higher and higher positions where more and more things are relying on them.
Mm-hmm. And Serena was just commenting, they need more than a warm body for such an important position. Absolutely, I agree. But this seems to be the attitude across the board right now. Whether it's, firing all the nurses and saying, don't worry, we can bring some nurses from the third world to replace our nurses, and they'll take our abuse. Or whether it's this attitude of the military or the police services, for that matter, that they can just replace all the people that they purged with immigrants from the developing world. The attitude seems to be that it's just a warm body in a position. And it's the same thing that we saw throughout the pandemic too. Like, it was all about the numbers, about getting the vaccine numbers up. Like that's all they really cared about, was the percentage on the spreadsheet. Didn't seem to be the case that anybody was thinking about like natural immunity. Didn't exist there for a little while. And, There was no consideration for, the well-being of the patient. It was all about kind of getting those numbers up. And so it seems like there's a lot of this kind of bureaucraties run amok out there. And here is just one more clip on that. This is Representative Khanna, and it's the same Cheadle again, or Cheeto, as many people are calling her, but same spate of hearings here. Here we go.
Do you know what Stuart Knight did when he was in charge at the time of the Secret Service? Do you know what he did afterwards?
He remained on duty.
He resigned. And Stuart Knight was not a Democratic appointee or Republican appointee. Look, I'm not questioning your judgment. I just don't think this is partisan. If you have an assassination attempt on a president, a former president, or a candidate, you need to resign. That's what Stuart Knight did. He was a Republican appointee, and he took responsibility. And I think you need to reflect. This is not a question of you. It's a question of the American people. You cannot go leading a Secret Service agency when there is an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate. I would say that about anyone who is running. And so I guess my question to you is, what's the difference between your position and what Stuart Knight did?
What I will tell you, sir, is that I am dedicated to finding the answers to what happened. And like every Secret Service agent, we don't shirk from our responsibilities. I will remain on and be responsible to the agency, to this committee, to the former president, and to the American public.
But is there a reason you wouldn't just do what Stuart Knight did after the Reagan assassination attempt?
I believe that I provided an answer.
There's nothing more that you have to say? I mean, do you really believe at this moment, given how divided the country is and the questions asked, that your service in this role is the best for the nation? I mean, I'm not saying you can't do public service again, you can't do something else again. Do you really genuinely in your heart believe that you being in this role is what's right for America at this moment?
Great question. I'm not holding my breath for her to step down anytime soon. I think I lost my video. Can you still hear me, Dacey?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're just a circle now. But yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, no worries.
For anybody who didn't watch this thing today, it's well worth watching. I mean, these are just a few minutes, but she was grilled the whole time. And if she was even 1/10 as good at Secret Service business or protection as she is at dodging questions and accountability, we'd all be fine. Like, she's obviously had coaching. She knows how to deal with this stuff and give on it. Can tell she's had media training, because the way she gives the answers, she's able to talk and kind of sound somewhat, like professional, ongoing investigation, whatever. She's able to kind of deflect and say a few things that she didn't just suddenly learn how to do that. She's had some practice at this.
Well, she's a career bureaucrat and a yuppie.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going on there. Is she speaks bureaucratese, and she's quite good at rebranding things, being a yuppie boomer that she is. That's very boomer female of her, I think.
One of the things that they drilled her on today, a couple of people got into it, but they were talking to her about slopes, and they were trying to dig in on the slopes. And you know how she said, "Oh, this slope is too much." She ended up, I got the quote here somewhere. We prefer, what is it? What did she say? Okay, this is her quote. We prefer to use sterile rooftops. So I guess sterile rooftops are zero slope. But so finally, after all this drilling and whatnot, and we prefer to use sterile rooftops, but they're perfectly fine. Like, the counter sniper team was on a more sloped roof over here, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Still going with this thing, right? She can't even admit, like, she's I'll clarify a little bit, and instead of just saying that she was talking out of her arse, she makes the sterile rooftop comment. Come on, guys. That tin roof was good too. I mean, I was staying under a metal roof just recently, and you hear one raindrop on there. You can hear. If a leaf falls on them, you can hear it. So, man, a guy scurrying and climbing up there, and he's dragging a gun with them, and like, you should definitely hear that if you're paying attention, even if you're not.
And there were people in the building too, because they had to admit that the counter sniper team. Well, actually, it wasn't a counter sniper team. That's the issue. It was local, the local law enforcement who had Their zone was the building that was used as for the sniper, and they were supposed to take that roof, but they said, we're not a counter sniper team, we're a sniper team, so we're just going to go in the building and look out the window. So they were actually in the building looking out the window with their sniper rifle, and the guy who took a shot at the president was just above them on the roof. It boggles the mind. And it looks like we got some of this fun coming our way, of course, because we're way down that DEI rabbit hole as well. Here's True North, and the title is Interim Spy Chief Authored Report Branding Parental Rights Advocates as Extremists. Wonderful. The new interim director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Services authored a report maligning concerns about gender ideology as domestic security threat. While serving as Deputy Director of Operations, Vanessa Lloyd, now the first woman to lead Canada's spy agency following the resignation of David Vigneault, previously led a 2023 public report by CSIS titled, quote, Mission Focused, Confronting the Threat Environment, close quote. The report identified the anti-gender ideology movement as a significant extremist threat to Canada. It claimed violent threats posed by anti-gender movement would persist into the coming year, specifically referencing the 2023 attack at the University of Waterloo by international student Giovanni Villalaman, entered a gender studies class with a weapon and injured 2 students and a professor. Quote, CSIS assets. Now, he was a foreign student, by the way. He wasn't Canadian at all. I can't remember exactly which country he came from, but hardly a homegrown domestic terrorist threat. Quote, CSIS assesses that the violent threat posed by the anti-gender movement is almost certain to continue over the coming year, and that violent actors may be inspired by the University of Waterloo attack to carry out their own extreme violence against the 2S LGBTQIA+ community or against the targets they view as representing the gender ideology agenda, close quote, the report states. The document emphasizes that while violent rhetoric alone does not necessarily lead to physical violence, the combination of such rhetoric with other extreme worldviews makes incitement more likely. The True North reached out to CSIS for comment but did not receive a reply. Quote, CSIS assesses that exposure to entities espousing anti-gender extremist rhetoric could inspire and encourage serious violence against the 2S LGBTQIA+ community or against those who are viewed as supporters of the pro-gender ideology policies and events, close quote, the report concluded. This isn't the first time CSIS has indicated that the agency was closely monitoring the activities of activists and groups associated with the parental rights movement, especially those opposing radical gender ideology. Earlier this year, documents from the Integrated Terrorism Assessment Center, that's ITAC, responsible for preventing terrorist activities in Canada, lumped the quote-unquote freedom movement in with extremist organizations, including QAnon and neo-Nazi groups. Quote, anti-2S LGBTQI+ narratives remain a common theme in violent rhetoric espoused by white nationalists, neo-Nazis, the freedom movement, and networks such as Diagolon and QAnon, close quote, the report noted. Despite CSIS's focus on monitoring such rhetoric, the report did not address the violence often faced by those protesting against gender ideology. Notable incidents include physical attacks and intimidation against parental rights protesters, such as the case involving teenage activist Josh Alexander in Calgary. Yeah, no kidding. Those guys get attacked all of the time, and somehow that doesn't make it into the report. I think that's more in line with what I was just saying about Michel Foucault, or not Michel Foucault, but Herbert Marcuse and the repressive tolerance. Seems like they're only going after the right wingers, and they will bend these narratives to suit that purpose. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I wonder what CSIS thinks about these ideologues that beat me over the head and robbed me.
Good question.
Not only someone with the opposing view, but also media, like independent media, right? So imagine if Rachel Gilmore got attacked by someone. Like, come on, it would be crazy. And what is this anti-gender? Are you anti-gender? I'm not anti-gender. There's 2, male and female. Not against them. There's 2 of them. That's it. And the extremist talk is so crazy, man. They're calling parents who want to have a say in their child's upbringing and don't want their kids ideologued into this crazy theory and don't want their kids on hormone blockers and to be mutilated. Yeah. And they're the extremists. Don't ideologue and mutilate my children. CSIS is after you, you extremist. And also you're now a white nationalist and what else? Like, come on. Just throw this stuff out like it almost. I mean, except to them, it's losing all of its power, and people see through this now. I mean, at a much larger scale, right? And so many more people are getting lumped into this group, like our group, I guess. So, like, as time passes, they're accusing basically everyone. If you step out of line or you disagree at all, then suddenly you're a white nationalist too. And when people who aren't used to being called this every day start getting thrown into these categories, man, that's quite an eye opener for people, right? Suddenly they're like, oh man, I'm on the other end of the stick. It's not going to work well for these people long term, I don't think.
No, but in the interim, they seem to be doubling down. So here is our first female chief of defense staff. Woke as they come, but here's Jenny Kerrigan.
You've been the target of,
and this is courtesy of Dacey Media as well,
of disinformation campaigns that General Eyre mentioned. How much of that do you expect to continue in terms of trying to sway Canadians' opinions or undermine our institutions?
Well, I can expect. I think we should be expecting some of that, and then I think we will need all of your help, you out there, the real journalists, to counter that.
The real journalists need to.
Is she talking to us? You mean me and you, or what? Like, come on.
No, I don't think she's talking about us. She was talking to somebody specifically in the press corps. We need all of you people, the real journalists. Yeah, the
she doesn't. I don't know about you, but she does not instill confidence in me. I mean, even the uniform and it all looks like a costume and show, man. And it does not instill confidence at all. And I mean, well, we
she's
know
a
how
bureaucrat masquerading as a professional officer. That's what I see.
You know how many high, like top level people, the men, have been taken out by these people, right? With accusations and rumor and innuendo and all this shit, right? You know, you had probably some people, and there's probably some good leaders that were still maybe at the top, but they've decimated that, just like they decimated the entire military, the personnel, the equipment, like every bit of it, the history. I mean, like they're disrespecting the history. They're changing everything, and it's very sad to see.
Andrew is saying that, quote, diversity is a superpower, close quote, actually came out of her mouth. I don't know that I heard that myself, but I believe it. That from what I know about Jenny Kerrigan, like she's the one who got told to go color in the corner after she tried to lecture the Iraqis about being better feminists. So, and apparently it's Russian disinformation for us to ask any questions about how she got the job or whether this has anything to do with wokeness and DEI or anything like that. If there's any questions around, her suitability for the position, then we're Russian assets, I guess. So that seems to be the tack that they're taking. Now, since this is all a disaster and we have an assassination attempt, and now we have these DEI hires in our own intelligence agency and military now, I thought we would go back and do a little bit on the latest about the shooter, about the attempted assassination. So here is the news you don't see, and they're tweeting out Brett Weinstein on the water tower and John Collins trajectory analysis at Trump rally. Okay, he's got a couple of quotes there. I think I'll just go ahead and play this. So this is something that people have been talking about. There's a few theories floating around out there that there was more than one shooter involved, and I've seen upwards of 3 shooters, but definitely 2 seems to be gaining some momentum. So I'll go ahead and show you guys this. It's actually a pretty good podcast here, but here we go.
Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's what I left off.
What is he gesturing at and glancing at? What's he pointing at?
Yeah, he's pointing at the Jumbotron.
He's pointing at the Jumbotron, and he keeps glancing at the Jumbotron.
See the big red?
He's glancing at the Jumbotron. He's pointing at it. He's glancing at it. All right? It's important that you remember this and this angle. If, in fact, he is glancing at that Jumbotron at the moment he is shot, there is no way that Crooks hits him in the right ear. Crooks would have hit him in the left side of the head. If he's glancing at the Jumbotron, Crooks hits him in the left temple, and the president is dead.
Yep, I see it.
If he's looking at the Jumbotron, what is directly behind the Jumbotron? the top of the water tower. Uh-oh. This gets very awkward because we've got footage that shows something shadowy moving around potentially on top of the water tower.
So here is the scene that he's showing. So we can see he's got a couple of different trajectories here. And they have the Secret Service counter sniper teams here on these sloped roofs. And over here on this slope roof, this is where Crooks is shooting from. And we can see that, you know, his trajectory, it hits the fire chief and it continues on into the crowd back here. And they're looking at some other trajectories here that could potentially be, you know, in play. But the one that he's really zeroing in on here is the second shot. The second shot he's saying is coming from the water tower, and it's going on this trajectory here. And just like he was saying, if Trump is turned and looking at the Jumbotron, then the shot fired from Crooks's position would hit him in the left temple, but the one that would have clipped his ear would have come from the water tower. So, and that is something that people have been saying. Here he is looking at the Jumbotron. That's Trump himself. When he turns his head, the head turn that saved the West, essentially. So interesting stuff coming out there. And here is Dark Crimes Matter, and they're sharing out some more info on this one. So I'll show a little bit of this. Here we go.
Couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. That chart.
So that's the top of the water tower. They were just showing like the whole dome on top of the water tower. And now they're showing this one, whatever this is, structure at the very top of it.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. That chart.
So I think what we're saying is that there's this kind of shadowy blob here that's next to this button on top of the water tower. Really hard to make anything out. It's just kind of a shadowy blob. Any thoughts on that one there, Dacey? You seen anything different?
Yeah, I've heard some of this talk. When I look at that blob on top there, I mean that's probably a cell phone camera with an extreme zoom. And when you see it move, you can see how big a pixel actually is in some places here. Like you get blocking. So I mean, there's probably distortion and pixelation there. Like whatever that is taking up almost the whole pixel, and so is the dark. I've heard some talk like this. I actually did watch a very long 2-part interview with did it under anonymity, but a Secret Service sniper. And he addressed some of this, and he seemed to think that water tower, they would have easily picked up somebody on that tower. Also that it has a very narrow catwalk around it. It would be very hard to set up and shoot from. A lot of the area was obstructed and wouldn't have had clean line of sight through those trees. They tended to think that it probably wasn't. But I mean, that's a professional, you know, everybody has their opinion. You never know with these things, but from that, I wouldn't jump to any conclusions there personally.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good commentary, actually. And as we can see, like back from the zoomed out view, it may just be the way the sun is shining. Like we can see here, there's like the shadow, right? The shadow. There's one side of the dome here that's kind of in the shadow, and this side is lit up. So the sunlight seems to be coming from this direction, and we see that the shadow we were just looking at, the globule, is it's on the same side as the shade for the rest of the structure. So it may just be kind of the dark side of the structure. It's just a shadow of this thing here that they're picking up because
Even
that's the direction.
In this picture here too, like, so even far zoomed out, you can see how low the resolution is, where it looks like the curve of this thing it's stepped. So you're seeing how low the definition is, or the detail in the definition actually is. It looks stepped. So that means it's so far back. So when you zoom in again, that's why I'm saying it looks like you're basically, that's 1 or 2 pixels on the sensor or whatever by the time it's zoomed all the way in. So you're getting the color. You're getting 2 blocks of color, maybe light and dark, but that's all you're really getting. And with the movement and the haze and whatever else, the atmosphere between it, you're gonna get noise and all kinds of other stuff. So I don't think there's anything conclusive there. It actually just looks like the top of the thing to me. It doesn't look like a person up there. And if that was a person, it would be very easy to identify. You would see that.
Well,
someone would see that.
And I also have a question, like if it's a person, how did they get up there? Like
on the top. Yeah, they'd be on the catwalk. If they were on something, they'd be on the catwalk around it.
Yeah, and the catwalk is here around the bottom of this round structure. So like that's where the catwalk would be. And then he's got to like climb up this round reservoir somehow to get onto the
Would have also had to climb. You'd also have to climb the ladder to the thing with a rifle or a case or whatever. Like there's a lot of things that would have to go on to get somebody on there at all. And that, like you say too, you'd have to have some type of climbing ropes or something if you wanted to get on the very top.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So yeah, I think that's.
He killed the gentleman in the water tower here. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here. He killed the.
There's eyewitness testimony that says that one of the counter snipers killed the guy in the water tower. It's eyewitness testimony though. And when you're in a chaotic scene like this, like there's going to be all kinds of noise, basically erroneous reports, stuff like that. It's mass confusion. So eyewitness testimony tends to be pretty unreliable, but this is another one of these clips that the guy in the Brett Weinstein podcast was relying on. He was saying that, there are a couple of eyewitnesses, and really eyewitness testimony is not very solid. And here is another diagram of the grounds themselves. Now, as we saw in the clip, what the guy on the Weinstein podcast was saying was that the sniper, the guy Crooks, he was positioned here. So if he was firing at Trump while he had his head turned, then he would have hit him in the left temple instead of in the right earlobe. And the only way that he gets hit in the right earlobe while he's looking at the Jumbotron, which is right here, it would mean that it would have to come from the water tower. Now, that's the case that he's making. And I don't know that it's that strong, really, because we have the Jumbotron here, so that's an obstruction to the shot. He's not really going to be able to see Trump potentially. Like, he would have a hard time seeing him because the Jumbotron is in the way. If he can see over him and shoot over it, I guess so, but still, Trump would have to be turned around and looking backward, because we see the stage is flush with the bleachers here, the main bleachers. So he would have to be kind of looking back over his shoulder at this Jumbotron in order for that right earlobe to line up, whereas he might just be looking over his right shoulder, just slightly, like turning to the right in order for the shot to line up for Crooks. Now, okay, same thing, basically. They're just doing the trajectories, and that's all fine and good. And here is just another diagram. You can't really see the water tower in this one, but what is good is...
And that's a little bit old, that chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. And that's
okay, so that's the moment when it happens. I'm going to blow that up a little bit. Now, the water tower is, way off screen here. But again, like, Trump is in front of bleachers. This is flush with the bleachers. The Jumbotron that he's looking off is off to the right here and a little bit back toward the back of the stage. So here we go. Look at his head.
A little bit old, that chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. And
so he's looking to his right. That much is clear. I don't think he's looking back over his shoulder.
To me, as you're trying to figure out.
Sorry. Let's see this.
And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, one more time. Let's get a look at this. So here he is. He's actually looking a little bit forward here, and then he turns his head a little bit more. He's looking directly to his right, and there you can see he kind of flinches. I think that's when, yeah, he actually gets hit right there. So he's looking kind of straight off to his right, I think. I don't think he's really looking back in the direction of the water tower like the guy on Weinstein was saying there. And there he is getting hit. So I'm not really seeing, this is the epic shot. Might as well show it.
Wait.
Jeez, just defiant, man. Love it. Okay, and hang on, I don't think that was the end of that one. Let me go through this again. That's the great shot.
From those,
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Dacey.
yeah, well, from the first one in that Weinstein video, from those first angles in the Weinstein video, it looked maybe like the trajectories. But when you see the other ones, it seems like that shot was definitely could have come from the roof, from where we thought where they're reporting it did. It actually, the more I look at it, the more it seems implausible that it came from the water tower. It's a much farther shot. It's elevated. It could be through trees. There's a lot going on there that seems to make it a much more unlikely shot to me. But I'm not an expert.
Yeah, and I'm not a ballistics expert either. I'm just a guy on the internet. But I mean, like, I can follow these lines. Like this one, here's the water tower here, and as you can see, it's coming from behind Trump, right? So in order for all of those trajectories to line up in the way that guy is saying on the Weinstein podcast, like, he would have to be looking a little bit back over his shoulder, and I don't really see him looking that far back. He's looking more directly to his right, and if you're looking directly to the right of this stage, then we can see, well, X marks the spot. This is where Crooks took up position, is right here. So that would be directly to his right, and not a little bit behind him like the water tower. So that's what I'm seeing anyway.
Yeah, and it depends how much he leans, right? So yeah, and so he says like it would hit him in the temple, but that's only true if he's turned enough. Like, you'd have to be really, really turned, right? If it was straight on, you could get him in the right ear. You'd have to turn his body and his head, basically. So his shoulders and his head would have to turn, I think, before it would get him in the temple. So I mean, it didn't look like it from the shot that we saw that he was turned that much. But
yeah,
that was.
I'm just going to show this one because I didn't show this the first time we came out to talk about this because I wasn't even sure this was an authentic photo, but apparently it is. This is the bullet that's whizzing by just as it hits Trump. Now look at where his head is turned. It does not look to me, again, it looks to me like he's looking directly to the left of the stage, or to the right. Sorry, he's looking directly to his right. He's not looking behind the stage. He's not looking back over his shoulder at all. It really looks to me like he's probably looking right at Thomas Crooks there when he's taking that shot. So
yeah, that's what I see too.
I think that's where we are. Okay, and here is probably the most epic angle that anybody's given yet. And I think we showed this before, but just to review, and they're tweeting out that Trump has an angel watching over him. I'll leave that to our audience to decide for themselves. But
Take a look what happened. Take a look what happened. Take a look what happened.
okay, so again, I don't think that's coming from behind. It's certainly not how these people have worked out this trajectory. Whoever did this visualization for us, it's pretty glorious, but it looks like it's coming a little bit from the front of Trump and off to his right, and not a little bit to the back. And what do you think there, Dacey?
Yeah, that graphic's pretty good, and it seems to fit to me. And even if we look at those trajectories, it like that fits with Crooks. The other one, I don't see how you can make it really work.
No, I'm not seeing it either. It's too extreme. He would have to, like you said, he'd have to be turned around a bit.
If that is the bullet if that picture is in fact a bullet in there, and I mean it looks like it. It's streaking through. It's moving fast. I mean, that's probably a high def 4K camera taking 120 frames a second or something. And it caught a little streak of it, and that would line up too with what we're seeing here, and the shot being from the roof.
Yeah, 100%. I tend to agree. And this is the shot one more time there, guys. I'll show you one more time. This is the one of the bullet whizzing by, and it does not look to me like he's looking back toward the rear of the stage over his shoulder. He does look like he's a little bit forward. So I think this still lines up with the Matthew Crooks on top of the rooftop and all this stuff about somebody on top of a water tower. Looks like it's probably just a shadow to me. And a low res camera. And Dacey's my sounding board here, so I feel less crazy when we agree. So, and I wanted to show this one. So we have the video and all that. We've already done that, but here is the young daughter of the fireman who was killed, and it looks like they're having the 20th birthday here. And she put a very touching post out there, and here it is. She says, "Yesterday, time stopped. And when it started again, my family and I started living a real life nightmare. What was supposed to be an exciting day that we had all looked forward to, especially my dad, turned into the most traumatizing, into the most traumatizing experience someone could imagine. I know the media will cover this event, and I'm going to try my best to stay away from looking at everything, especially because I've already seen and lived through it in real time. But I want everyone to know what the media will not cover, and that will not say about him. He was the best dad a girl could ever ask for. My sister and I never needed for anything. You call, he would answer, and he would do whatever it is you needed. And if he didn't know how, he would figure it out. He could talk and make friends with anyone, which was what he was doing all yesterday and every minute of it. He was a man of God, loved Jesus fiercely, and also looked after our church and our members as family. The media will not tell you that he died a real-life superhero. They are not going to tell you how quickly he threw my mom and I to the ground. They are not going to tell you that he shielded my body from the bullet that came at us. He loved his family. He truly loved us enough to take a real bullet for us. And I want nothing more than to cry on him and tell him thank you. I want nothing more than to wake up and for this to not be reality for me and my family. We lost a selfless, loving husband, father, brother, in the bullet that came at us. Oh, sorry. So it picks up here. We lost a selfless, loving brother, husband, uncle, son, and friend. I will never stop thinking about him and mourning over him until the day that I die too. July 13th will forever be the day that changed my life. I will never be the same person I was less than 24 hours ago. There are a lot of children out there that say their dad is their hero, but my dad really is mine. I don't think I would be here today without him. Dad, I love you so much that there aren't enough words to express how deep that love goes. I know you'll give heaven some hell. I know that God is proud of the man that came to his gates yesterday." Well, there's a real human behind all of this. And, I just wanted to put that in there because some of the nastiness that we've seen online, people cheering for more. It's been pretty despicable, but these are real people. And man, oh man, like there are some really, really great Americans, I think, going to some of these rallies. And, we should be talking more about that instead of, these leftists out there cheering for more blood. It's just so terrible. And Tracy's saying so sad. Elaine is saying heartbreaking. SQA says very sad. What do you think, Dacey?
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. I mean, my heart just aches for that family, and I mean, God bless him and the family. But this is it's talk about toxic masculinity and all these things so often, and then you see, we all want to think that when push comes to shove, we'll do the right thing, and you see here, this is a real hero, right? When things mattered, this guy didn't think, he acted, and he put his body between a bullet and his family. And he paid the price for that so that his family could live. And we've seen this before, at these nightclub shootings, these mass shooting events where there's men and, young, old, whatever, and they're literally throwing their bodies on top of their loved ones. It's something, I can't imagine being in that situation, but you just hope that you would have the bravery and the, the base to do that, right? Like,
yeah.
I know for me, like it would be harder to live. I'd rather take the bullet and die than live without my family, honestly, man. Like,
it's a good death.
To think anyway. Yeah. I mean, trying to live with I know people who have lost children and they never get over that kind of tragedy, right? So
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, unbelievable. And just the heroism, just really incredible. Here is Bongino again. And like I said, his analysis and reporting have been absolutely excellent through all of this. I've been listening to this guy for a number of years, so I really appreciate him. He's Secret Service, and he's no BS. That's what I really like about him. And he brings this, his experience, the experience that he brings to it, coming from the Secret Service and stuff like that, really gives it a good flavor for a military guy like me. Anyway, here is his take on the multiple shooters theory.
There were 3 different shooters. This is your home for breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, the third shot was from a local counter sniper team, a non-Secret Service counter sniper team, local police. They missed. That's the third shot. The truth has no agenda, okay? You stay here, you will stay on target. Stay in these other places, you're going to get misled, and we're going to make the same mistake we made in past things where folks, there are people out there who are secret. Listen to me, please. Please, I'm going to pause here. I need you to please trust me on this. There are people out there secreting themselves into our movement and feeding nuggets of information they know to be false. They're not us. They're doing it for a reason, to distract you from the truth. I don't know this guy's motive. Could this guy be working with other people? Maybe. I don't say what I don't know. I don't say also what I'm not going to eliminate that as a possibility because I have no evidence otherwise either. The third gunshots were from a local police department. You are going to get spun down the wrong path, and I'm absolutely convinced there are people doing it on purpose to discredit you. You do with that what you want.
Yeah, I think he's got a pretty good take there. We should be pretty careful about not getting out over our skis there because we have enough issues with credibility, given all the slander coming from the left, that we don't need to go spinning new conspiracy theories, like leaping to conclusions and these kinds of things. It's good. Like he says, you don't take the possibility off the table. But we need to be more conservative, I think, in our analysis when it comes to these things. I'm always espousing Hanlon's razor, never attribute malice where ineptitude will suffice. Occam's razor is another good one too. Don't make any more assumptions than absolutely necessary. So that's kind of what I try to do around here. And I think that it seems so far like things are holding pretty true to our initial analysis on this one, Dacey?
Yeah, definitely. What was the name of the first razor there that you said? That's something I tend to think as well. Definitely.
Hanlon's razor.
Hanlon. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you do have to be careful with this stuff. You don't want to. Lots of things are possible. You don't want to exclude any possibility without, unless there's evidence to do so. But some things are far more likely than others, and we need to keep that in mind, I think. And Bongino, man, I've been watching Bongino a long time too, and he's often right on point. It's interesting too. So he was a police officer, I believe, NYPD, and then also Secret Service. And when he was going on, he's lots of people watching. He's got some great insight. But when the left mainstream media talk about him, they never mention his Secret Service time. They'll say former police officer or former New York police officer, completely leave out the part that he was a longtime Secret Service agent and worked on some of these details. So this is just the tricks and the things and the shady business that these folks will use, right?
Speaking of shady business and these folks, I got this clip too that Dacey sent on over. So we were talking a little bit about there's some bleed over, from the US to Canada. And the left is always accusing us of what they themselves are guilty. So they are always accusing Pierre Poilievre of importing like MAGA politics and stuff like this. But really, like, they went full woke. They're basically just an extension of the Democrat Party in the United States, which is an extension of the Chinese Communist Party. And there's probably a direct line to them from Trudeau's office as well. So yeah, I mean, I think what's really been happening is we've been importing a lot of these American politics, which are also Chinese politics, to Canada. And we see a lot of this kind of polarization at the lowest levels. We were talking about a little bit about this last week about how, the leader's words carry weight with people. And so by the time, like all these people are pretty much out of harm's way when it comes to the fallout and consequences of their words. But it's the people, kind of the regular rank and file in our society, that end up bearing the full brunt of it. So, yeah, here is a little bit of the what's been going on in Ottawa. We were talking about this last week, but this is some new footage here. So here we go. Oh, let me get the volume. You guys know that dude's back.
Don't be a liberal. Don't be a liberal. Don't be a liberal. Just exposed yourself for being a liberal and ruining this country. Good job. Walk away then. Wow. You're not very Canadian by giving other Canadians the finger, though. That's not very Canadian. No, you're yeah, but you could like back up. Bye. Don't touch me. Don't. Really? She punched me first. Look it. What the fuck is this? I want the cops. Look what she just did to me. Come with me. Come on. You pushed me first.
What's that?
It got wild. So just so people know, there was an incident. The same that same young woman, came at us already before. So this isn't the first time she's she came at me and Danny like completely unprovoked, and I did share that video too. So it's the same woman that had come at us earlier. She knew that, I guess she knew, whatever. It wasn't coincidence. She started with the fingers, and some stuff happens off camera. But Christine, when it head, she had like at least as black, probably blacker than my black eye was. She was hit pretty good, and the man there also engaged with them, and he got into it with one of the guys there pretty good. He tries to stomp him a little bit later too. So just so people kind of have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah. And what seems to be the beef here? Why are these people approaching
the Trump flag? It's all about the Trump flag or flags in general. I mean, it's a hate for the freedom movement, convoy, Trump. I mean, it all kind of goes together to these people, right? We are holding a Trump flag, and this was right after the assassination attempt, so it wasn't. There was a reason.
Yeah, and it's amazing, I guess.
This might have been slightly before, actually. Might have been before. I could be wrong there. I think we went back. So this was actually maybe the day before, but I mean the sentiment's the same.
Yeah, and Rob is saying she should be arrested, but she's on the left and can, quote, do no wrong, close quote. Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it as well. I mean, you'd have to go way over the line to get arrested as a leftist, but they're looking for any excuse if you're on the right.
And you got to be careful with these things, right? So like the woman starts, right? She engages her for it. She's given the double birds. Then she comes right up, and I mean, it looks like there's some space there, but these are with wide angle lenses. Like you got a 0.5 or whatever. We got wide angle lenses, so she's probably like within like less than a foot at most when they're close together, like within inches at times. So I mean, that encounter is actually far closer than it appears in that. And I mean, you got to be careful with this. Right, someone's going to come in and try to instigate you, which kind of worked, right? Christine was fairly calm for Christine, I found, but. She gives her the finger, then the woman escalates again. She started the interaction. Christine gave her the finger after having enough of her in her face. She didn't push or hit her. She gave her the finger. That's when then this woman then escalates things and pushes. Christine pushes back, makes space, and the woman turns and cracks her right in the face.
Yeah. And that is what they're looking for too. I mean, with all the buzz on social media, everybody cheering for the assassination of Trump, like it's not hard to tell that the left is violent, right? Like they're cheering for this stuff. And he represents, you know, a lot of us in, you know, in a general sense. Like a lot of us are supportive of him and share his views. So they're basically saying that they want us dead, you know, when they go after a representative.
Well, they didn't just sort of say that. They said that to us like recently. I mean, people were walking by and were screaming, "I wish you got shot in the head. I wish he died." There was people like not just one or two. I mean, there was multiple people who made these kinds of statements and threats towards us, or you know, I guess it wasn't a threat, but these statements. They wanted us dead, and they told us as much. We wish you were dead. We wish you got shot in the head, and using that kind of language.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least it's not hard to tell who the good guys are in this situation. Yeah. Like they're making it really easy for us anyway. They're making it really easy to tell who the evil, sick sons of bitches are, and it's them. Yeah. So, but they just project all of their own evil and awfulness and pedophilic impulses onto the rest of us, because that's how the evil mind works. You know, they just project all of their own guilt onto the rest of us. All right, guys, that brings us all the way up to the Veterans for Freedom website. You can subscribe to our newsletter by clicking subscribe here. Join if you're a veteran by clicking join here, and support if you want to support V4F directly. Donate here. The V4F support fund that we were using to help Canadians suffering under this tyranny has since been migrated over to the Accountability Project, which is a federal not-for-profit with the mandate to advocate for human rights, including raising funds for public interest plaintiffs and class action lawsuits. So, yeah, we're going to be stepping into that lawfare battle space with this one. We got to embrace lawfare. You know, it's what they're waging on us. So we're starting these things so that we can fight back. And all the way back around to Plato, folks. He says, there will be no end to the troubles of states or of humanity itself till philosophers become kings in this world, or till those we now call kings and rulers really and truly become philosophers, and political power and philosophy thus come into the same hands. And we have anything but that going on right now, this day and age. These are not wise people who are leading us. And so, well, what do we see? What do we see in the streets is total chaos, right? Yeah, this is another one from Plato, is the apathy towards public affairs is to be, or sorry, the consequence of apathy toward public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. So that's pretty much where we are right now, I think. Dacey, over to you, brother, for the final thoughts before we sign things off. I didn't keep you quite as long as I did last time, but I think we're doing good. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple hours is a nice round number. Yeah, I'm just enjoying the rest of my time here. I'm headed back to Ottawa tomorrow, I think. There's still some stuff going on in Ottawa. Pat King is wrapping up his defense. It should probably wrap up tomorrow. Then maybe a couple of days off. Then closing arguments coming Friday. If anybody wants more detailed updates on that, check out Right Blend on Facebook or X, and he's been covering that. So that's kind of the biggest thing going on in Ottawa right now. And when I get back and at the end of the week, I'll have some updates on that.
And he's Right Blend on X now as well. It's not Patriot Smoothie anymore.
Yeah, Right Blend everywhere now. I joke and call him. He should name it Alt-Right Blend, but he didn't like that idea.
Yeah, that's too bad that Hillary Clinton ruined that word for us, because it was really catching on leading up to the 2016 election there. And then she ruined it. But yeah, and everybody just kind of gets on board with, yeah, alt-right means white supremacy. That's not what it meant in like 2015. But then after the basket of deplorables comment, now alt-right means evil, Nazi, racist stuff. So all right, I'll throw to a couple of comments here. We got Rob here says, great show, Jeff and Dacey. Have a great evening all. And he's giving us the victory, Maple Leaf and the triple slashy. Darlene says, wow, great live. Jeff and Chris, enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. And she's giving us the hearts. Rock Girl says, thanks, guys. Hearts, cross swords, hearts. And Ellen says, fantastic show. Thanks, Jeff and Chris. Cindy says, thanks, Jeff. Hearts got my Mortal Error book today. Smiley face. Thanks, Chris. And victory, #winning. Mortal Error is the book that I recommend on the Kennedy assassination, which was really an accident. Another great example of why you should stick to Hanlon's razor. Never attribute malice where ineptitude will suffice. Evelyn says, take care all. And Patricia says, good night, everyone. I love you all. Have a good night and be safe. And Chris Dacey, good work as always, buddy. Hearts, Canada Hearts. July 27th, 1 p.m. is Canada First. Be there if possible. Jeff, I'll send you stuff. All right, you send me some stuff. Patricia, it sounds good to me.
Send me some too, and I can look into that too if there's something going on around here.
Yeah,
around
that
me.
sounds good to me. I mean, I'll be whatever's going on the 27th. I'm doing some traveling around that time. Let me think. Yeah, I am good for the 27th because that's just this Saturday, so I will be ready to rock for that. So go ahead and send me some stuff, and I'll promote it on the show here if I can do that. So, and Tracy says, great show. Okay, right on, everybody. Thanks very much for being with us. Until next time, stay frosty and stay safe out there.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs.